In the next few minutes, I am going to take you from this blank Claude screen to three results: a researched answer with sources, a client quotation created from a repeatable process, and a project that remembers the context and instructions for your work. If you have opened Claude and thought, what am I actually supposed to type or click? Then this video is for you. We will go through the 10 parts of Claude that matter most to a beginner, one at a time. We will start with a normal chat, then move into models, files, projects, skills, connectors, and the settings worth checking. You do not need to master everything today. You only need to understand what each part is for and which one will help you do the next piece of work. So let us begin with the part that you will use most. When you open Claude, the large box in the middle is your chat box. This is where you tell Claude what you need. You can ask a question, give it a task, paste some notes, or describe an outcome you want. For example, I can type, give me a summary of the major AI updates this week and include the sources. Because this question needs current information, Claude searches the web before answering. You can see the search happening, inspect the sources each used, and then read the final summary. That source list matters. Claude can still make mistakes, so when the information affects an important decision, open the sources and verify the claims yourself. On the left side, new chat starts a separate conversation. Chats take you back to conversations you have already had. Use a new chat when you are starting a different topic. That keeps the context clean and usually produces a better answer. Now, your prompt matters, but the model answering it matters too. Next to the send button, you will see the model Claude is currently using. Click it and you can choose a different model. Do not worry about memorizing the version numbers because those will keep changing. What matters is understanding the model families. For most everyday work, writing, summarizing, planning, and general questions, use the current SONE model. For difficult analysis and more complex multi-step work, Opus is the stronger option. For quick answers, Haiku is the fastest option you can use. And if your account shows Fable, reserve it for the toughest long-running work. Most beginners will not need it for normal daily tasks. Below the model, you may also see an effort setting. Low and medium are useful for routine work, and high is a good balance for most serious tasks. Extra and max give Claude more room to work, but they also take longer and they use more of your available usage. There is also a thinking switch for tasks where you want Claude to reason more carefully before answering. If you are unsure, keep this simple. Use the current SONE model with the default effort level. Once the model is set, typing is not the only way to give Claude a task. The microphone button lets you dictate instead of typing. Click it, speak naturally, and Claude turns your voice into text inside the chat box. This is useful when your idea is still messy because speaking is often faster than trying to write the perfect prompt. You can review the text, make any corrections you need, and then send it. On the other side of the chat box is the plus button. This is where you give Claude more context or more capability. You can upload a file or photo, take a screenshot, add something from Google Drive, or connect the chat to another source you use. You can also turn on web search when you need current information. Research goes further. It is better for a deeper question that needs Claude to investigate several sources and connect the findings. So the rule is simple. Use a file when the answer should come from your information. Use web search when the answer needs current public information. Use research when the question needs a deeper investigation. Do not switch on every tool for every question. Choose only what the task needs. And once you repeat the same kind of task, you can stop rebuilding the process every single time. That is where skills become useful. A skill is a saved process that tells Claude how to perform a particular task. In this example, I created a skill called snapshot quotes for fictional photography business. Instead of writing a long prompt every time, I can select the skill and say, generate a quote for 150,000 shillings for a wedding shoot. The client is Jane Doe. Claude notices that one important detail is missing, the shoot date. So it asks me for that information before producing the final quotation. That question is a good sign. A well-designed skill should not invent details that affect the final output. It should ask for what is missing. Once I provide the date, Claude follows the saved process and creates the quotation in a separate working window. That output is an artifact, which we will come back to shortly. For now, remember the difference. A skill stores the process for a repeated task, but a business, a client, or a long-running body of work needs more than a process. It needs a home for its context. That home is what we call a project. Open projects from the left sidebar, then select New Project. Give the project a clear name and describe what it is for. Once the project is open, there are two areas that matter most: instructions and files. So instructions tell Claude how you want it to behave inside this project. For example, I can write, use a warm and professional tone. I could expand that with rules about prices, customer information, writing style, or anything Claude must check before producing an answer. Files give Claude the background information it should use. You can upload a document, add text directly, connect a source such as Google Drive or Notion, or bring in information from GitHub when that is relevant. For a photography business, this could include the business profile, services, frequently asked questions, and approved examples. Now, every chat inside the project can use that context. You no longer need to paste the same background information at the beginning of every conversation. That is the easiest way to remember the difference. A project stores the context for an area of work. A skill stores the process for a task you repeat. Projects organize the context. And now let's look at the reusable outputs and processes Claude can create around that work. The first is an artifact. An artifact is a substantial standalone output that Claude opens in a dedicated working window. It might be a document, a diagram, a piece of code, a small app, or in our example, a client quotation. Claude does not create an artifact for every response. It uses one when the output is something you are likely to edit, reuse, or work with separately from the conversation. The artifacts section in the sidebar gives you one place to find those outputs again. Under Customize, the Skills section shows the skills available to your account. You can inspect what a skill does, enable or disable it, create one with Claude, write the instructions yourself, or upload a skill you trust. The last part matters. Skills can contain instructions and code, so only install them from sources you trust. Now, Claude knows the process and can create a reusable output. The next question is, how does it reach the apps and information where your work already lives? A connector links Claude to another app or service. That could be Google Drive, Gmail, Google Calendar, Notion, GitHub, Slack, or another tool you use. When you open a connector, you can see whether it is connected and what permissions it has. In this Google Drive example, the connection is already active. The permission controls determine which actions Claude can take automatically, which ones need your approval, and which ones are blocked. Review those permissions carefully because Claude should only have the access it actually needs for the work you want it to do. A plugin is a larger ready-made package. It can bundle skills, connectors, and other helpers for a particular type of work. For example, a sales plugin can bring together the skills and app connections needed for sales work without making you configure every piece from scratch. You can inspect what the plugin includes before installing it. And just like skills, install plugins only from sources you trust. As a beginner, you do not need to connect everything on day one. Start with one app that contains information you already use, then add more only when a real workflow needs them. At this point, you may have noticed that Claude offers more than the chat screen. So which Claude product should you actually use? The normal Claude chat is the best place to begin. Use it for questions, writing, research, files, projects, skills, and most knowledge work. Claude Code is designed for building and working with software. Cowork is designed for larger multi-step tasks. When a task needs local files, your browser or your computer, Cowork reaches them through Claude Desktop. Claude Design gives you a separate space for creating visual work and interactive prototypes. These products deserve their own tutorials, so we are not going deep into them here. If you are completely new, stay with chat until you are comfortable with the steps we have already covered. Then move to code, cowork, or design when the type of work actually calls for it. Before you start using Claude for serious work, there are a few things you should check once. Click your profile in the lower left corner and open settings. Under general, you can review your name and add instructions that should apply across your normal Claude conversations. You can also adjust the appearance, chat, font, language, response style, voice, and notifications. Do not fill every box simply because it is there. Only add a permanent instruction when you want Claude to follow it across many different conversations. Under account, review the devices and active sessions connected to your account. If you see a session you do not recognize, sign it out and secure your account. Under privacy, you can control model improvements settings and manage or export your data. These settings matter whenever you plan to use Claude with work or business information. Under billing, you can see your current plan, payment method, invoices, and any extra usage settings available to you. Plans and prices can change, so use this screen to confirm what your account includes today. That brings us to one of the most common beginner questions. What happens when Claude says you have reached a limit? The usage screen shows how much of your included allowance you have used. Your limits depend on your plan, the model, the effort, the length of the conversation, and the tools you are using. Claude's normal session allowance resets on a schedule shown inside your account. Users may also have the option to purchase usage credits and continue after the included limit is reached. Set a spending limit before enabling extra usage so that the cost stays under your control. Under capabilities, you can manage features such as memory, tools, connectors, artifacts, and code execution. Memory allows Claude to use useful context from previous work when that feature is enabled. You can review what Claude remembers, edit it, import memory from another service, or switch off memory. Some capabilities are required for features such as artifacts and skills, so do not turn settings off randomly. Change one only when you understand what it controls. Claude Code and Claude in Chrome also have their own settings, but you can leave those until you begin using those products. Finally, if you need a temporary conversation, start a new chat and click the ghost icon to enter incognito mode. An incognito chat is not saved to your chat history or Claude's memory, and it is not used for model training. It also does not use your existing Claude memory. But Incognito does not mean the conversation has zero retention. Anthropic says it can keep these chats for a limited safety period according to an organization's retention policy. You can also reopen the chat after you close it, so save anything important before leaving. Use a normal chat for work you want to find again. Use Incognito for a temporary conversation you do not want added to history or memory. Now you know the 10 parts of Claude that matter most when you are starting. You do not need to use all 10 parts today. Start with these 3. Open a normal chat and ask Claude to complete one useful task. Upload one file when Claude needs your information, and create one project when you notice yourself repeating the same context. Once those 3 make sense, skills, connectors, plugins, and other Claude products will feel much easier. Which part should I break down in the next video? Projects, skills, connectors, Cowork, or Claude Code? Leave your answer in the comments, and thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.